think we do that. We just work it up to that, and then that'll lead us into chatting about
The panels
and like last time, the conversation just
You forget these are on, don't you?
Yeah,
We do in the end.
Yeah.
Better not have forgotten them.
Yeah, that's it. They better be on. Yeah. But yeah, that should be fine. That should be all right, shouldn't it? That mic there.
Yeah, that's
That
fine.
should be fine.
Yeah, all good.
Awesome.
Shall I bring us in, this one?
Can do. Yeah.
Is everyone ready?
Born ready, mate. Born ready.
Born ready. I like it.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the Renewables podcast. We are here with a returning guest. But before we go to them, how are you doing, Sam?
I'm all right. Yeah, it's nice to be warm again. It's been a very wet, windy, and stressful day. But this is now become my little happy place, coming and speaking to you and speaking to whoever we've got on. And I'm very excited for this one. Really good. How are you doing?
Similar experience. This week's been brutal for installers, hasn't it? We got lucky on Wednesday. It was nice and sunny. We got absolute carnage at our unit because we had 9 pallets turn up for a college donation. And Nathan, my son, an employee, or if you ask him, his senior management, is moving house tomorrow, so he's got his worldly possessions in there, along with the contents of all of our vans, waiting to put his worldly possessions in the morning and move. So, bedlam. But yeah, all good otherwise. Anyway, we've got our guest with us today, and it is a returning one. It's Sarah. How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm very well, thank you, Mark.
Thanks for coming back to have a chat with us. And you're not in the prior guise of employment these days, are you? You've moved on.
I've moved on to a different area of the industry, yeah.
To the dark side, some might say.
Yeah, some might say. Well,
The light side.
The light side.
I got there
What a
first.
segue.
No, but yeah. So last time we had you on, Sarah, you were working at Waxman Energy, which is a distributor. I think it was one of our first guests.
I think it must have been.
It must have been
very early days.
Very early days, wasn't it? We really loved listening to that, and the people that were listening to the podcast at that time loved listening to that because it opened up quite a lot of conversations around the behind the scenes of when myself or Mark or anyone as an installer listening to this goes to order a panel or an inverter, everything that's had to happen for that order to have taken place. And so we had a really good conversation around that. So it's definitely worth going back if you haven't listened to that episode already to check that one out, because that was a really good episode. And then we were in different surroundings as well, weren't we? We're in version 1 podcast studio, weren't we?
Sarah was nearly there this evening as well. It wasn't until last minute commed yesterday.
Yeah, we had to quickly confirm addresses, didn't we? But how's life been then since the kind of job change? It's always a big thing, isn't it, to change a job?
Yeah, it's an emotional time, I think, changing a job. Working in distribution for 14 years and 7.5 years spent at Waxman's, and to have evolved through the distribution channel from sales order processing, answering the phone and taking orders, then onto senior management roles, account management, national account manager, up to director level. It really becomes part of your life. So yeah, a few people change and people grow, and sometimes you can hit a ceiling in a position, and it takes a fresh set of eyes and some new blood to come in to take things to a different level. And I just felt I'd hit a point where I'd done as much as I could. So yeah, it was quite an emotional time leaving, but it was more for me. I needed to change, and I left without a job to go to, and I thought I'll see what comes of the industry. I've been in it a long time. My reputation speaks for itself. I think some people might think I'm a bit brutal, other people might think I'm all right. But I was approached by LONGI. Initially, there was a job for a senior sales manager available, but they came to me and spoke to me and said they'd like to offer me sales director. So I joined the team, the UK and Ireland team, in November after 3 months sabbatical. So I did a bit of painting and all the rest of it, a bit of gardening, and yeah, joined the team in November, and it's been great. It's been really good. It's a good brand, so I'm excited to see what we can achieve this year.
Yeah, well, very excited to learn more about LONGI and everything. And what sort of things have you found kind of different then in terms of I'm sure now you're on the outside of the wholesaling side of things, looking back into it, there'll be certain things that you kind of go, I will not miss those bits.
Yeah, I don't miss the aggression. There's a lot of people selling product in distribution now, so you've got a lot of SKU lines, you've got a lot of product to consider. There's a lot of inverters have got one like the ENA, You've got the in-roof system that you're worrying about fire test certification, whereas just coming and working for one product group, you can sort of really drill down and focus on it as a whole rather than sort of spinning these multiple plates and different hats and trying to do everything all at once. So I found that I can really focus on one thing. I've got a great team that I work with, so I don't directly look after any accounts myself. So I work in the background more on the operational side, looking at ways in which we can increase our marketing, what can we do that's different, the exhibitions, going out and speaking to customers to position the brand and the features and the benefits of the product, rather than dealing with the prices and the containerised and shipping things. So I can actually focus on what I'm good at rather than just the selling day-to-day stuff. So,
That's what really appealed to me about renewables when I first, I was kind of trained in that area anyway, and we've known each other since I was doing that training. But the reason that I carried on into renewables in my kind of in Oval was the fact that I liked having that little niche where I didn't have to worry about, being absolutely awesome at fire alarms, commercial fire alarms, or, doing all these other things that some people watching this may have had their careers in it and they're looking to tag on renewables. But certainly when I was starting in business, you kind of niched into things, and I think renewables was in that position. It's more mainstream now. There's a lot more people adding it into their, the standard electrical work or their standard plumbing work and fitting heat pumps and things. But there is something nice, isn't there, about having your lane and going, right, I'm going to learn everything I can about this lane. Other things will happen in different lanes, but that's not necessarily what I need to worry about.
No, it's about separating yourself and being different. You can. There's a lot of people installing renewable products, and you've got multiple types of installer. You've got those that are all about price, and that is a real rat race. That is sort of really circling a plug hole of competition and race to the bottom on product pricing and installation price. There's always somebody out there, so-and-so will do it cheaper. That's that type of installer. Then you've got what I would class, like yourself, Sam, who's more of a, you're looking at the quality products, you're looking at a quality installation. You're not always going to be the cheapest, but it's about products that hit the point. So you've got your fire safety side of things, you've got the roofing side of things, you've got you do a thing as a whole. It's more of a renewable solution for that home. So therefore it's everything. And then it's the same with the products. So you have the cheaper side of the products, you've got tier 2 products, you've got TopCon modules, and then you go into a different space where the LONGI and the Rayback contact sits. So you're giving yourself a niche. It's a different type of installer. We either go on price or we go on technology. And technology is always going to win because it's the advances that come in. Price, there's only one way to go, but with technology, it goes up. Price, it goes down. So for me, it's about finding your space and sitting in it and doing the best of your job in that space.
Yeah, it's interesting how the synergy with us as installers replicates back to a manufacturer as well. And I guess in the world of the wholesale, when you're looking at kind of marketing and things, you're relying on some of the brands that you're stocking in a way to do a lot of that heavy lifting and reaching consumers, getting installers on board. But when you're working direct with the manufacturer, you're kind of in charge of your own destiny, I suppose. You can set your own strategies and where you want to go in a marketplace and put that new technology in front of the right eyeballs. That's a challenge for you now in what is a competitive market space with all the solar panels and issues around global shipping and importing and things, which you'll have experience from with your time in wholesale and distribution. So you've actually got a big advantage there. But yes, it's an interesting change you made, Sarah. And I think when Sam first told me, I was very surprised. But you're obviously enjoying it and getting stuck in there, and it's going to be good to see how you push things forward.
Yeah, I mean, I work within the distribution sector of LONGI, so I've got a really good insight on how the distribution model works and what frustrations the distributors have with the pricing and with oversaturation in the market. So I've come at it from a different angle. I'm looking at ways in which we can work as a partnership. What marketing, who's going to position LONGI as the brand in their portfolio where it deserves to sit? It's not a commodity product, it's a real high-end technology product. So you've got to pick the right partners who then you can pick the right installers to go and see and back channel sell it. It's, if we sell more to them, they've got to be able to move the product. It's no point in me dumping 50 containers on them and leaving them to it, because that's not a partnership. How do I help them sell that as quickly and as efficiently as possible to the right customers to maintain a margin so it's a profitable part of their business? We can all go out and sell, but you could sell £10 million worth of product and not make any money. That's not a good sale. You've got to go out. Same with you guys. If you've got a domestic install and they're pushing you because they want the cheap of the cheap of the cheap, that's not the customer for you. Let somebody else deal with that. There's room in the market for other people, but you pick your lane and you stay in it. It's quite as simple as that. So it's going to be interesting. I think with the advances in technology and the way that everything evolves, so as the products evolve, people evolve, the businesses evolve, I think the consumer's actually at a point where they're evolving now. They're actually looking into the products more, they're researching the product, and it's not always about the cheap and cheerful product. They're looking at it as an investment now. You know, I use a bit of a tagline, and people just laugh at me when I say it. You know, when we get pulled on price, oh, well, so-and-so's selling at £5 per panel cheaper. I said, that's all well and good, but that's a Topcon module. We're not Topcon, we're a Ray-Back Contact. It's totally different technology. You don't walk into Tesla and ask for Ford prices, do you? So let's be honest, it's where does it sit in a remit of the industry? And again, you just stay in that side of your industry. I'm never going to be a cheap product, so therefore it's pointless me pitching it to somebody who needs it on price.
Yeah, I mean, I find it frustrating in the world of renewables that consumers do want to know the real finer detail on every aspect of pricing. I said to Sam the other day, actually, you wouldn't go to a car showroom and ask them for a price list on every single component in it. It's just not the way it is. But there just seems to be that analysis towards renewables, and I guess it's because of the way it's focused and skewed a bit as investments and RTIs and things at a domestic level anyway. Maybe that's what's driving it. But yeah, you're dead right. I think what you said earlier about the technology being key to driving that value or explanation of value, because the other thing consumers really like is being right at the top end of the curve of that. They want the best and the latest and greatest stuff, some to the point that they sit on the fence of actually buying for years sometimes, just waiting for that. And I think with panels, and you'll have seen this, Sam, and you, Sarah, you've been in this industry way longer than me, where they've come from, a couple of 100 watts to where they are now, heading upwards maybe towards a kilowatt before too long. It's getting crazy what some of these panels can do, isn't it?
Yeah, I was looking at some of this, and it's like 670 watts and all this. I'm thinking, oh my Lord, how are we going to keep up?
How heavy are these going to get?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first panel I ever sold was a Jettium 190. That makes me sound, I mean, I'm probably like a pensioner of the industry, to be honest, ready for retirement, but it's evolved at such a rate that is extremely hard to keep up with. And I feel like for the distribution side, keeping up with those advances when you are holding vast amounts of stock is a challenge, because you've got to convert that stock back to cash as quickly as possible by keeping it relevant. Because, you know, it's like the iPhone, isn't it? When a new iPhone comes out, nobody wants the old one, they want the new one. So if you get a Gen 2 of something come out, but you've got 500 of them sat in a warehouse, how do you position that to somebody to make it look attractive when it's been marketed on a new product? It's difficult to stay current. So for me, working in that partnership with the distribution channel to ensure that stock rotates quickly, so they're always on current pricing, they're always on current range of modules and things like that. That's the job I've got in hand, because I understand from that side how frustrating it is.
Yeah, we got that with the Give Energy All-in-One when they announced the All-in-One 2. It took 2 years to release it. That caused us a massive problem in our little business. It must be an absolute nightmare for wholesalers who get stuck with pallets full of this stuff, be it panels or inverters, and likewise for you as manufacturers when you maybe got all that disrupted by another manufacturer who comes out with something that's ahead of the curve of your product, and you're struggling then to get it distributed. So it's difficulties everywhere, isn't there? But it's exciting technology to be in and amongst, and some of the stuff you've brought along, Sarah, that you were showing before the podcast looks really, really interesting. We were fitting one of your competitor brands just this week from ICO with the solid black panel. Lots of consumers are opting for that because the aesthetics of it beyond the performance of the panel itself. But it's interesting to learn the differences between those different cells and stuff. I'm just an electrician, so I don't get a lot of the technology behind that, I'll be totally honest. So we're relying on people like yourselves to kind of explain that and, you know, see the value in the differences beyond how they just look.
I think what's exciting is that you know, you've got the Airco brand as well, and you've got the LONGI with both of Ray-Back Contact technology within the modules, but it's been a long time since panels have been attractive. So the attractiveness was always the EV chargers or the batteries and their functionality, and, you know, having the ability to charge from the grid or fire suppression. There was always something exciting happening with that, and panels became quite a mundane sell. It sort of forced it into the price-driven sector of panels, of selling really low to clear a lot of stock. Whereas now, you know, LONGI we're coming out of the TopCon space, and where all our modules are now rear back contact, which is, for us, it's the advances that's needed to increase the efficiency, increase the output power. So a standard TopCon module might be sat at a 455, 460. The LONGI module with rear back contact will be running between 25 and 30 watts higher on an all black module for the same physical size. An increase of efficiency and the cell optimization, where it just means that you're going to get more out of that system. So if you've got a client who is looking at the technology and the advance in technology and the lifetime of that system, when you put a rear back contact module like LONGI in the game space for it, and you work out over the 30 years how much more is that going to generate in power compared to a TopCon module. Number one, you're 25 to 30 watts higher. Number two, the A-class fire rating of that module. And number three, the efficiency, and then the cell optimization, where if there's leaves on it, it bypasses those cells and still performs with the bypass diode. That end consumer is getting a lot more for their money. Yes, initially it's a slightly higher cost, but when you look over the lifetime of the system of 30 years, how much more are they going to get out of that investment? When people buy a car, they drive a forecourt and lose 5 to 10 grand. They don't go, oh, what's the return of investment on this car? But with solar, it's like you touched on earlier, Mark, it's because it was a false economy. It was sold as better return of investment than an ISA. So people always look at solar as the money-making scheme. We need to start looking at it as an investment, as part of their property. You put a new kitchen in, it's an investment. You put a conservatory on, it's investment. It increases the value of your property. You put solar in, it can increase the value of your property. It's an investment. So I don't get why people are investing in poor quality products or less efficient products within the property. And that's not just panels, that's batteries, that's car chargers. I don't understand this need for cheap. Do you know? And you'll know yourself, Sam, because you don't fit the cheap products. You know, you're an avid solar edge installer, you're an avid SIG energy installer, Alpha. I've worked with you for years with Alpha as previously, but it really baffles me how somebody would look at an investment of £10,000 to a property, but opt to spend 7,000 or 8,000 for a cheaper product. It's bonkers.
So these conversations form a lot of the podcasts we put together, and also a lot of the pre and post chats that me and Mark have, because it is really tricky. And I think, you know, what LONGI and all the other brands in, you know, panel brands and battery brands, inverter brands are all facing is, if they aren't going to compete, and installers aren't going to compete on the bottom edge of it all, that's trying to be the cheapest, then it's all then about educating installers to choose it and why it might, you know, reduce callbacks to a job, or educating installers to then educate end customers as to why that product is better than the one that's going to shave £1,000 off the price. And, you know, we have it all the time, Matt, don't we, where, you know, costs and equipment costs come down, but, you know, labour costs seem to go up. And we've had these conversations, and we're going to be having future conversations about it. And installers we are under more pressure to do more in properties. And part of that actually comes before we've actually been paid for anything, because we are, as trying to sell a project, we might be saying, right, look, let's look at these LONGI panels instead of these whatever panels, because they are better in this way, that way. That customer can then take that information and go and find an installer that is £500, £1,000. I've had it before where customers not gone with us because we're like £200 more expensive, and I'm thinking, I spent hours on the phone and emails telling you why I wanted to fit things, but yet you kind of give all that information out in the hope that they use you. And that'll be the same with you guys. You know, you'll be trying to get people over to using LONGI, but then actually reinforce, you know, this rear back contact, which I want to learn a little bit more about. But then if there's others on the market that do it, then they might benefit from you explaining it. It's like
you're giving your trade secrets away.
It's really difficult.
It's as well. It's the same with distribution. So when I was in distribution, we would run the designs for installers, and technically you were running the PV Sol report or the PV Sys report design software that costs you as a licence per year, you were handing them exactly what that system would do, and you hand them the bill of materials and you'd hand them a mounting report. The installer could walk straight into another distributor and buy the same kit. And that distributor's never done. It's really difficult because you do have to invest so heavily front end in this industry with the sales side of things, with no return on that, built on, good faith that your reputation procedure, like you with the YouTube channel, your podcast, everything else, you would hope that people would trust your Trustpilot reviews and everything else to go with you and the products you're pitching to them. But the issue, I think, on the consumer side, although they're evolving and they are becoming more really clued up on products and everything in the industry, I do think there's still a lot of education we need to put out there. And, it's like any industry, there's always the rogue trade side of things. There's always the cheaper products coming in. I think there was something on the TV this morning, somebody bought a shoe warmer off TikTok and it had set a house on fire, 200 grand's worth of damage, because people are buying cheap and it's backfired. Going with a reputable brand, a reputable installer that you can research, that you can look at, that you can speak to, people who've had previous installs done, look at the reviews, look at the social media. Everyone goes for social media now, Instagram, TikTok. Have a look and see what people are saying and the feedback. It can be great in one aspect, social media, but also it can be really bad in another, that the slightest little problem, people can go on and really whinge about the installer, whinge about the product, when 9 times out of 10 they've been in there pressing all these buttons on everything and they've knocked the whole system out. So, it can have its plus points, its bad points, but I do think education is the way forward. And I think doing these podcasts is great. People can get a real good understanding of what's going on and where things are in the market.
I think with the stuff you see on the news as well, sometimes around a lot of the solar fires that often take the headlines, it was interesting to hear you say about the fire safety rating of your panels. And we know, Sam, from the conversations we've had with the fire service, that they're actually looking at that as well, their side of things, to kind of have that put more front and centre in consumers' minds with campaigns that they may be thinking of running. So I think stuff outside of our industry is important as well to raise consumer awareness. But that is things they are starting to kind of take notice of. It is that fire rating, is the cell level optimization and bypass that you mentioned as well. Is that, because I'm familiar with the bypass diode where it maybe takes out a third or half of the panel or whatever, but I think you're saying it is just on a cell level basis with this type of panel you've got.
When you have the panels on a roof and you have, where leaves fall on the panels, or you might have, you might be in an area such as I live in Scarborough, so you might have a lot of seagulls, so you get a lot of bird poop. So when that lands on a panel, it sticks on a panel, it can create a hot spot under that panel. That panel starts to increase quite rapidly. There is some videos on our LONGI LinkedIn page that show you the cell optimization. So leaves, whatever it is, debris sat on that, you will get a real hot spot underneath that panel. When you look at the how a Topcon module is made, with the buzz bar's been at the front and all the mechanical's been at the front, it works in 3 sections. If you have something that lands on that panel, in that section, it takes the third of the panel out. So you're running at a 35% loss straight away on that. Not only that, you're creating this hotspot situation, which is a fight. It can be a fire hazard. With LONGI, we have the bypass diodes where we've got the cell optimization. So you get a leaf or bird poop sat on there, it bypasses that and continues to work. So you start to lose less of that panel than you would losing the third. So you're constantly running a really efficient panel, which then doesn't affect the string. It doesn't drag that entire string down of that. It doesn't eliminate the need for optimized solutions, i.e. using the Solar Edge or Tego optimizers, because that's in the event of severe shading where you need that system, or you monitoring the system. That's always going to have its area. But with the fire safety, there is a real drive on, especially on C&I stuff, where the buildings insurance companies are looking at fire class ratings of panels, and not only that, they're wanting the optimised solution for panels to be shut down at panel level in the event of a fire. So, why wouldn't a consumer look at their home as a valuable asset, the life of their family within that property, and want to make sure that that system at every point, the inverter, the panels, the mounting, everything has got Class A fire rating, or at least, the ability to shut the system down. Art boxes, why wouldn't they push for all this? It's a small addition in cost in compared to your home or a life. You could end up losing your entire home by going cheap or by going, with a non-reputable installer.
Yeah, I have a real issue around. So, like, if you'd have asked me maybe a couple of years ago about what the best way forward to try and kind of get people to change why they're buying things, I would have been fully behind the whole education side of things. I've got a massive problem with it now because I just don't I don't think that the majority of people that start to get something that ends up being quite mainstream, because previously solar PV and batteries were people that had the money in the bank, that that maybe had really high bills and they were kind of forced to look at it. I think now where we're entering, like with this warm homes plan and all this, which we're still waiting for some detail, but where it's getting to be a bit more mainstream and people are kind of just they're getting it because they want to reduce their bills. A bit like you buy a car because you got to drive to work. You don't necessarily know exactly how the car works. Certainly in my case, I don't. But I think one of the main ways so I've kind of shifted my view really. So now I'm in the view of this needs to just be forced. That it needs to just be mandated now that you have bird protection to stop birds going in. You have rapid shutdown. You use things like art boxes. You have the right fire class, and you literally can't buy it without that.
It.
Because I just don't think. I think the education side is great, but the ones that really double down on the education side are the ones that kind of research stuff anyway. I think now, and after our conversations that we've had, Mark, with the fire service on these sorts of things, it's like it just needs to be rammed down the throat now and kind of been like, right, you can't have this, you can't get insured on this property unless you can prove that this and this is in place. And I think that's just where we are now. We're kind of we're coming out of hopefully soon, the DIY world and we will never come fully out of that because there's always people that buy stuff off eBay, but it feels like we're coming out into a bit more of an established industry. It's been going a lot of years. Like we've known each other for pretty much all of my adult life, and and I've been fitting this the majority of my adult life, and so we're coming out of that period now where it was just the people with beards that had solar panels and an old Nissan Leaf on the drive. Yeah. We're coming out now where it's families that are looking at this, where a family's just bought a new building and they're looking at this and they expect it all to be safe and good quality kit being used. And some will and some won't, but I feel like now it's the point where we have to go. We really need to just draw a line under fitting kit that we know, having looking backwards in time that causes problems. When it's fitted now, the problem might not be for 10 years, but let's just try and eradicate that, because like you say, an extra £10 a panel over a small number of panels on a domestic house is nothing. But if you get an extra safety, it may be the difference between you being able to insure your house or your business or not.
It's that performance side as well as the safety side. I think consumers will really buy into that. And you're right, Sam, it's like rising the tide. If we do that, all the boats have to rise with it or they sink. It's simple as that. I think when we're looking at the bottom edge of our sector, that's where a lot of these things start to get cut away, like optimizers, like BirdGuard, like maybe cutting back on some of the technologies that have been used. And that's the space where the actual rules that the industry bodies and such like are putting forward need to be really robust. And we've had that with the MCS and the GSE in-roof system, where there was the whole removal of lots of that equipment, and the mounting systems as well, wasn't there? There was a few of those that got removed. And then there was kind of like a workaround that was put in for a number of months, and that needs to be more robust, I think. Not just that specific example, but we need a higher bar at the bottom end of the industry. I think if we're really serious about safety and we want consumers to take us seriously, those other things shouldn't really be an option, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, we often say we like the regulations. They're a minimum, not a maximum. So, like, if you're just working to the minimum standards of everything, that isn't where that shouldn't be where you try and stay. That's where you stand on, and you look at how can I offer more value? How can I, thinking about that I'm covering the minimum standards, how can I lift my offering, my value to my customers, the safety, everything like that? How can I offer more than what is just I've been told I need to as a minimum? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of what we see is kind of people just trying to stay, with their nose above the minimum rather than trying to just stand on the minimum and look up.
Aspire to be the best in the industry by looking at the highest bar and aiming for the highest bar. I think as an industry, we've got a duty of care in every area, whether it be the installer, whether it be the manufacturer, whether it be the organiser of an exhibition. We've got a duty of care. But I think looking at this industry and seeing the boom and bust scenario that we've had with the accreditations of installers and products, and the feed-in tariff, and how it's been such an emotional roller coaster over the last 12 years. I think as an industry we need to go a step further. The one thing that really infuriates me about this industry is the amount of hoops that the manufacturers themselves have to jump through for accreditation. So you have all your different levels. You've got your European accreditations to be able to use it under building regs. You've got your MCS accreditations, fire safety, everything else. But what I think we let down is the fact that when it comes to the people installing it, you don't even have to be accredited to install it. Now that really annoys me, because anyone can go into a wholesaler that sells to the general public and go home with a 4 kilowatt kit and stick it on the house. Why are we going to such lengths to protect the industry as a level of safety for fire? It takes a disaster for people to assess things, and it shouldn't be like that. Look at the whole cladding of buildings that went on with the fire, and it's taken that as a disaster and loss of life. You don't have an MOT. You don't have an MOT done on your car without it being an MOT tester. You don't have your gas servicing done without being a gas engineer. You don't have a brain surgery done without a brain surgeon doing it. So why on earth, as an industry, are we allowing an everyday electrician to go and fit solar that has probably never done it before, or a roof? We need to be accrediting the installer, because I think there's got to be a level that you set so the product is accredited for use in the UK, and you can only use that. There's got to be a certain level of standard of product which is used, like you say, bird protection, especially in areas populated by birds because of the nesting and the fire. Art boxes for art detection. We are a human species. You're never going to eradicate human error, but the majority of problems and the majority of failures and fires are down to human error through bad crimping of MC4s. So it goes on and on and on. So, if we set a bar of every install has to be completed by an accredited installer, there's a way to monitor that then. Who's doing what work and who isn't. Every product entering the UK market has to hit a certain accreditation to enter it, to be fit for purpose. And then you've got like a minimum requirement for each install, i.e. bird protection, art boxes, things like. Obviously not always bird protection if you're not in an area that has a mass of birds. It might not be, you don't need it on an in-roof, things like that. But we seem to put the installers who were accredited through so much pressure in this industry with paperwork and everything else. We seem to put the manufacturers through a lot of pressure, but yet there's that area which allows the ability to install poor product and poor workmanship that we still openly let happen. That's where my frustration lies.
It sits in the world of normal electrical contracting as well. You can go and buy a consumer unit or even a distribution board as a normal DIY, which I find absolutely bizarre. I mean, you can't do that or you just wouldn't be able to do it with a gas boiler, for example.
No.
I think we need a better legislation which comes from way outside of our industry and industry bodies. You're looking at government
legislation
to do that kind of thing, and I'm aware of something that is coming forward that might actually help with that. It might actually be out on YouTube tonight, I think, from some creators who put something together which will hopefully help drive that in the world of politics. We shall see, but very much comes into the solar industry as well. Everything you've said there, Sarah, is absolutely dead right. That shouldn't be a thing, and we need to work harder at that as an industry collective, I suppose, to raise awareness of that and get some of those changes legislatively. Because otherwise it's just not going to happen, is it? We'll be sat here complaining about it as you've been struggling with for the last 10, 15 years, and nothing's really moved in the world of legislation, has it? I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing with it is when it isn't a hard legislation where it's literally like just talking about minimum standards, when it's not a minimum standard where literally, you can be prosecuted for fitting it because it's a limited, you have to have the training to do it. Then what happens is a lot of the installers, and there'll always be the ones in the middle, but a lot of the installers that really care about doing a good job get accredited. They're really cautious about the work. They're the ones that are actually getting the accreditation. But if they didn't have the accreditation, they'd probably not be doing the bad work anyway, because they want to do everything by the book. They're happy to pay their X amount a year to be accredited. it's kind of like a false sense of security, because unless you're forcing everybody to be accredited, the ones that don't really want to be accredited, just want to do stuff on the sly, will do stuff on the sly and probably do things wrong. So actually the accreditation is almost like, well, the people that are in that accreditation will probably, even if that accreditation wasn't there, would probably be doing decent work because they're happy to be in that.
The quality installers, yeah.
You'll always get those ones that are accredited that don't, but like in the majority, without any figure to back it up, but the actual majority of the ones in the accreditation would probably be doing great work outside of the accreditation anyway. So it needs to just be a case of, right, if you're touching this kit, it could fall off a roof, it could burn your house down, it could do this. Like, I agree with you, Matt, a wider just electrical side of things this should be as well, not just limited to solar, but have another level for solar because of the roofing side and the risk of fire and everything else. It's like, why are we just so slow at that? But I'm keen not to turn this into a complete morning podcast.
No.
But I did want to just quickly touch on, so obviously we're kind of moving from different technologies as we have with solar PV and batteries and everything else. So the new kid on the block is kind of this back contact. Yeah, and you've got so you mentioned a little bit about the fact of instead of it taking out a third of that panel, it's only taking out the cell
which it covers, yeah.
And that's because we've got the contacts on the back, and we're basically
bypass diodes.
Yeah, and we've got the bypass diodes there. So it's actually splitting that panel into much smaller sections, so that you can get around any of that leaf cover, or like you mentioned, and having worked and done my training in Scarborough, I know what Scarborough is like, and as soon as you get a chimney there with some panels nearby it, that panel is getting coated. Yeah. And so things like this are kind of the next big thing, really.
Yeah, so you if you start getting these hot spots through the bird poop or debris on the panels, and it starts to generate heat underneath and it damages those cells, the efficiency is lower, the life cycle of that module is decreased rapidly. So if you can bypass that, there's less damage to those cells within the module, because it's not trying to force energy through those cells, it's going round them. So it just takes an alternative route, it reroutes round the cells. There's opportunity then, people can come in, they can brush everything off, they clean the panels and everything else. You're prolonging the life of that system because it becomes an investment. So you're looking at ways in which you can protect those cells. It increases the efficiency of the modules by using the rear back contact, and aesthetics as well. We all know that the domestic properties, we don't all stand at the bottom of a drive looking up at the roof, but consumers do want the panels to look attractive as solar panels can be. So it's got a really good aesthetic look to it. It's like having an LCD screen, I think, a TV screen on your thing. But we don't just, LONGI itself we do manufacture wafers. That's where LONGI originally started as a wafer manufacturer, cells and wafer manufacturer. So we do manufacture for the industry, and we create our own modules. We do have like specialist. We've got 3 in the range of the HIMO. We've got the EcoLife, which is the domestic solution, which is the all black aesthetics module. You then move on to the C&I sector, which we've got a transparent module, which is black frame, back cells, but no back sheet. That comes in a 54 cell. We do 54 cells, 66 and 72 and 60 cells. We do the white back sheet module. So there's different products for different areas of the market. The product range is extensive. But then we get into the Guardian section. So we've got some specialist modules for dust. We call it anti-dust. And what that is the panel frame. You can only put these in our portrait orientation, but the lip of frame is missing at the bottom. So if you're in an area of snow, you're in an area of dust or debris or water, rain, it runs off because there's no lip at the bottom. So you don't have that build up then, and then that lime scaly looking sediment starts to appear on the panels. So you've got them. We then do the 1.0 and 2.0 anti-glare. So therefore, installs near airports. I did put a picture on of the 2.0 anti-glare on my LinkedIn, and it actually looks a really good module. When the light hits it, it sort of mattifies it because it's got a chemical etching on there. you do sacrifice some efficiency and some output power, but that's not what is important near an airport. It's about the anti-glare for the pilots coming in. And then we have the lightweight module. So you do have installations that the building might need structural engineering upgrades and things like that, and it makes the solar not cost effective by having to throw another £20,000 at the building to upgrade all the steelwork. You can look at doing the lightweight modules, and I think they work out about 7.3 kilograms per square metre. So it's a lot smaller.
Big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. So LONGI is at the forefront of product innovation. It's not just a bog standard module, you know, an everyday commodity product. There is so many different modules that offer solutions for different areas within the market. So
Yes, we often see just the wattages going up and up and up, but there is obviously big innovation around all of that. Is a lot of that increase in power from kind of the efficiency of this, or is the panels just getting larger? Because every time we go to these trade shows, they seem to be getting up towards the ceiling, some of these things now.
You can't move them. They're huge.
Yeah, some of them are really, really big, aren't they? And they're about 25% efficient now, some of these latest ones.
It's up towards that, yeah. I was actually just having a look for that in here. But yeah, that's one of I think that's one of the concerns that installers have as an installer. You know, suddenly you see all these things on trade shows and might be like, wow, a 650 watt module, and it's like, yeah, it's 2.5 meters in height. You're like, right, okay. But you know, like around the between the 1700 and 1800, like you've got here for these ones, and these are 24.8% maximum efficiency. It's like that's kind of where we're at, because we've got to remember, for in the domestic world anyway, that you know the houses are usually from ridge to gutter, you can be anywhere between 4 to 5 meters, and then you've got your edges around that, so you've maybe got 800 mil in total that you're losing. So you're coming down and you're thinking, wow, we're getting really tight to that 1800 per row. And so sometimes it's kind of you literally need to be fully compliant. You literally need like 30 mil off each panel. I know we've had to look at before at like, right, where can we find a panel that is just that little bit narrow, even if it's a little bit wider, just because we're tight for room. And so there's all that to contend with. And sometimes, as installers, I think we feel like there's potentially a disconnection between what we're trying to do on a house, and also the panels getting bigger and more output. But I think it's really exciting where the technology goes, because, like you said, that 190 is your first panel. I think my panel was like a 200 or I can't remember. It was, but you literally were like,
that's
it was
when
like
you
a
were
TV.
A spotty teenager.
Yeah, I couldn't lift it then. And it's literally like there were 996 or something like that, weren't they? 1640 by 996.
By 992,
yeah.
I think
that's
standardised.
That's a much better size.
Yeah, 1640 by 992, 250 watt all blacks, 2 rows of 8 on a big portrait on a pant-out roof.
Yeah.
That was the standard. Standard solution.
Yeah.
It's you do think sometimes, like, you're trying to. This is a global business, is panel manufacturing. So you are making product that is a global product, and every country has different house sizes, roof types, and everything else. So you're trying to make something that is achievable all around the world. But you sometimes see these panels getting bigger and bigger, and it's like, oh, that's going to be a 2-man lift going up onto a roof. If a gust of wind comes, you're taking off with some of these modules. They're huge, and it's logistically as well, moving them. It's like the pallets within a container, shipping, and then I think there's some 650s, 660s about at the minute. You can't, as a distributor, they can't offload them, take them in, and then ship them back out. So any of the C&I stuff has to go direct to site. So you've got to adapt to these new products coming into the market, but it's not always quick to adapt to it. So yeah, it's going to be, watch this space. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 12 months.
There's the kind of costs around it, and I know nothing about global politics and stuff, but I did catch a bit on the news about the Chinese rebates. I think you mentioned before, the has to do with the VAT. And also the raw materials costs going up as well, especially around silver and gold and things. So is that something you're kind of challenged with at LONGI at the minute?
Yeah, we've seen silver costs over this last sort of 10 days increase. We've had 3 price rises so far, which is having a knock-on effect to obviously already price jobs and things coming through distribution, and you have to react to that. We only have a certain amount of time where we've got prices locked in with raw materials, so it's caused a lot of frustration, I think, for the distributors and the EPCs we've been speaking to. But we've got to have a clear line of contact with those guys and just keep people up to date with what's going on, and we're trying to do that the best we can. But there's going to be an increase, I think, moving forward until silver can stabilise. That's jumped up massively, but the one that is it's inevitable, it's going to happen. As of the 1st of April, there's going to be a 9% tax removal in China. So the Chinese government subsidised 9% of the VAT. It was higher, and then they slightly changed it. It's coming in batteries as well. That's going to be staged between April this year and April next year, either 3% and 6% or 6% and 3%, but it's 9% on that. And they're removing that. So we are going to see a minimum of 9% increase. And trying to explain that to people is difficult, because it's like, oh God, prices are going up again. It's out of our control. There's nothing we can do. We cannot ship anything from the 1st of April without that. We're, as the Chinese manufacturer, we're getting that removed. So, panel prices did need to go up. They did need to go up because it was a race to the bottom, and some manufacturers were selling below manufacturing costs. It's not sustainable. As a business, you get up in the morning, you go to work. You don't go to work for free.
It feels like that.
We're sat here now for free, but we don't go to work for free. You go to work to pay your bills. The same as a manufacturer, you can't keep pumping out product at a loss. There was a lot of losses, and with losses comes casualties. So the industry itself I think it's stable. I think when you look at the demand for solar, the future home standard, the warm home projects and things like that, and C&I and battery storage and all the carports that are going in, especially surrounding the services with the batteries and everything to offset running costs. It's a stable market, so we need to have stability through the manufacturing side of product coming in that is innovative, that is new, that is fresh, that is exciting. Because if you don't have that stability, you're not going to have that money to put back into R&D. You're not going to have the latest developments in technology. You've got to have that to keep moving with the time. So it's a real, what came first, chicken or the egg? It's, it's not working harmoniously from manufacturing to distribution to delivery on site. But I think the industry itself is a lot more stable than I've ever seen it. I think people are, solar and renewable are a big part of everyday life now.
I think consumers have had a right treat on the pricing on the supply side of materials for the last 3 years when we entered the industry, because panel prices have fallen a long way from when we bought our first ones like 3 years ago. Every time I check, I'm like, they can't keep getting lower and lower, but they just seem to keep going down at that rate. And now, obviously, with the tax rise, that's going to change. You're saying that's for batteries and inverters as well. There's maybe a bit of a reality check on the consumer side, because we've had it said towards us as installers that your prices seem to go up while all the kit costs are coming down, and we're just creaming that fat in the middle, which isn't true. I mean, tell me anything over the last 5 years which has got cheaper, really. Apart from solar panels, I can't really think of much, because everything's gone up, hasn't it?
It has, and like we said right at the start, installers now, certainly more domestically, are expected to do a lot more. We've had conversations off the podcast, Mark, about helping customers, advise them on their tariff, helping them get their system onto Octopus intelligent tariffs, agile tariffs, how all this sort of stuff is going to work, and suddenly their charger their battery starts to discharge to their car, which they never had before because they weren't on an intelligent tariff. So you're having to have those conversations around that, and that's where, like we said right at the start of this podcast, that's where the companies that want to just compete on price in terms of installers will really struggle with that part of the industry, because they're selling loads of jobs because they're the cheapest, but then suddenly they're then stopped from selling loads of jobs because they've got constant phone calls about the questions that we get. And if there's not enough fat in the jobs, then suddenly you don't have the money there to employ somebody to look after that side of things, and you start getting bad reviews, and it suddenly starts to spiral downwards. And I do fear that for people that are entering the industry now that are looking just to compete on price, and some of the big companies out there that are really competing on price, that this stuff doesn't hit you straight away. This stuff it catches up, because if you're doing that volume of jobs, you are opening yourself up to that volume of calls, and it worries me in that sense. But equally, my priority is to my company to really make sure we've got that side of it now. But we come under pressure to do that, and it is a strain, because you maybe there's maybe a sales call you could have made to actually sell a job, but you're on the phone for an hour trying to work out how we can get around this new problem, because a new tariff has come out that was nothing to do with us. So installation costs will continue to rise in terms of our costs as installers, and the market, like you said, I think it's pretty stable at the minute, apart from wars and things going on where materials are going up and down. But in terms of like a demand, I think it's there. And actually, I think in a more unstable world, taking control of your own energy to reduce, like buffer your own risk of energy spikes, just seems to be such a brilliant idea. If you've got some money in the savings, and hopefully with this warm homes plan, there's going to be something that sounds like open to everybody. There's going to either be low interest loans or
zero
grants.
interest. Yeah, so it could be really low interest loans or zero grants. I think it's needed, because I don't think it should be a wealth situation.
And it has been, hasn't it?
It has.
It
It was
has.
always. I mean, you go back. We're talking about panel prices. I mean, the panel prices 12 years ago were eye-watering. I remember when I worked at the first ever job I was in Scarborough selling solar panels. I used to actually buy from Waxman's. I've known them for a long time, and we used to buy the BenQ AUO. It was when the 327s were really odd, 330s and 327s. They were like 84 pence a watt. So when you look at the eye-watering cost then, and that was sold based on better return of investment and ISA, where you didn't have to think about the tariffs, you didn't have to think about octopus, you didn't have to think car charges and batteries. It was a bog standard 4 kilowatt kit on a roof with MCS to get your feed-in tariff. Easy job done. People were making really big money then, really big money. So it's created this false image of the industry. Like you say, you're having to do so much more. Your accreditations, the fire side of things, the GSC, everyone's having to do so much more. But as an installer, you will have to have reassurance in the quality of products you're offering. So you don't have contingency in an install to have multiple returns to site before that install then becomes a non-profit install. As a business, we're all in business to make money. We want to make money. That's the whole point of it. You don't go to work for free, but you need to have quality products for the install. You need to size the system correctly. You've got to pitch that system correctly. You've got to make sure that caters to the needs, not the want of the consumer. The consumer wants something because they see everything on the advertised, but it might not be what they need. Anybody can go and sell a system that's not correct to that homeowner. You've got to do that, and then you've got to go out and fit it. But you've got to trust the products. You're not going to have to go back to site. So the quality of products, you've got to trust with the battery. You're within the PAS documentation, or you've got your fire suppression. There's so much more to it. But maintaining the industry by having the quality products, quality installers, and a standard, it protects the consumer in the long run.
This is an important thing to remember from the consumer's side. And to be fair, lots of them do get that to a point. Certainly ones who are approaching us, I think that's mainly through the YouTube content we share. You kind of attract the client that is interested in the things you're offering, I suppose. But it's that mass adoption phase where people maybe are interested in this technology. They're just getting it to reduce their bills, where they maybe don't have that education piece. And is there places that they can go and we can go as electricians to get more information around the LONGI products? Have you got stuff on socials? You're going to some of these trade shows that
Yeah, so we're on social media, so we've really wrapped up on social media. We're obviously we've got the professional profiles on LinkedIn, but we've got a website as well. So you can go on the LONGI website. It's a global website, and they've got the European side of things. Download any of the videos, any of the content on there, and look at the products, and look at the traceability reports. We're the only solar panel manufacturer with traceability gold standard for the Stewardship Initiative, which is the independent audit into the factories to make sure we haven't got any forced slave labour, and the conditions in which the workforce are in, and the raw materials in which we use don't come from an area that has got a slave trade associated to it. So yeah, it's just about maintaining that. People can check everything out, and failing that, they can speak to you guys, can't they? And you can tell them all things launching now. You've got your brochures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are kind of people like ourselves, like other installers and what have you. And I think there's like this at the minute. There's this group of panels that a lot of us are fitting in terms of the output. different brands, but the output of kind of anywhere between 450 to 480. That's that kind of mark. So in terms of like Longi's offering for that type of customer, where are we kind of sitting at the minute with the output in that kind of range? Because obviously we've got some 670 watt ones and all of that, but what sort of range are we sitting at?
So in the domestic market, we're sitting at anything between 475 and a 490 at the minute for the all black, aesthetically good looking panel. We do have an exclusive deal with one of the distribution partners, which is Solon, for the S10 version, which is the heterojunction all black module. So it's an all black HJT rear back contact solution. That is more pricey, but again, it's the technology. There's always a space in the market for the technology, but then you've got a space in the market for the all black module. When you go up into the C&I solutions, that's when we're hitting sort of the 530 onwards up to the 625, 645 market. So we will see the roadmap between sort of now and the end of next year creeping up towards more the 700, but that's more the utility space where, you know, you're doing the 10 megawatt, 20 megawatt ground mount solutions. We've just had 157 megawatts installed of the 2.0 anti-glare over in somewhere in Holland. There was I think it was 157 megawatts installed in an airport of a different brand of modules, and it was affecting the pilots coming into land. The whole system's been pulled out and the Longi's been put in. So, you know, it's a great marketing piece for Longi, but I hate to have had that bill from whoever's. But again, it was the requirement. Again, it's the need and want. You know, if there's a need for it, if there's a requirement for it, we've got the product. If people are looking at cheap and cheerful, you know, you've got the Topcon modules, but it's innovative. It's the top end of the game in technology. So that's where we want to sit, and that's our lane, and that's where we're staying.
See that HTC technology? HJT, is that like earlier wake up morning time and later in the evening? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so we've got the lower startup voltage in our modules. So technically they wake up early on a morning, they go to sleep later on a night. So when you look at the performance on a day within that system, all the panels with rear back contact, our panels have that. They're actually your end client, your consumers actually getting more out of that system because it's working earlier in the day and later in the night. We work in lower light conditions.
It's great for the UK climate in this time of year, isn't it? Yeah. When it's generally pretty dull most days.
I still think I need to paint a water panel to absorb water for electricity because we do all that. Yeah, especially after these last few days. But yeah, so you do get a lot more in value for your money with the Longi modules. I think you know if you're generating more power, longer warranties. Our residential are 30 warranty. 30 years performance, 30-year manufacturing, because we trust the products that we use and the raw materials that we use and how we build it. A majority of our factories is AI, but it's self-learning AI as well. So if it makes a mistake, we've got some videos I can send through. You can share them.
We love a bit of AI, don't we, Sam?
Yeah.
Right.
We do, yeah.
So yeah, it's all in all, it's been a real whirlwind of a few months since 20th of November joining the company, but.
Yeah, it sounds like you're across it all. It's interesting times with the way the panel technology is going as well, and what might be coming that we don't even know about, and you probably do, unless you've got any world exclusive you want to give us on the podcast.
We've been trying to get one since the start.
And she's from Scarborough, so she will do.
Yeah, the rock parts off.
Oh no! Well, it's been fantastic chatting to you, Sarah. It's been really good. Ever since I learned that you were leaving Waxman, I was really keen to kind of see what you did next, and I'm very much sure that Longi will be very grateful that you joined them, because you're an absolute little powerhouse in this industry, and the amount of people that you know. Well, I didn't want to say that. No, but it's great, and you know, we need some strong voices in trying to push quality, and you know, it's not all just about sales, it's about trying to educate. Even though my views shifted on that, it is still about educating installers as to why to offer better products and things, because these kits are not on people's roofs for 10 minutes, they're on there for 20 years. So yeah, no, it's been really good to chat to you about all of that. Is there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest about Longi or anything like that, or are you all Longi'd out? Very good. We're
going to be at all the events this year, so
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Solar and storage, installer show?
London. I'll be at installer show on foot. I will pop in.
Okay.
So we are Solar Storage Live London. exhibiting with our utility team. We're at the NEC Birmingham later this year. We're at Intersolar. So yeah, we're getting about.
Yeah, very good.
There's a renewable heat show in Ireland as well. So we've just taken on a guy for Ireland, so we're trying to tackle that market as well. So we've got the renewable heat show next month.
Fantastic.
Exciting times.
Well, if you head into any of those, make sure you have a chat with Sarah if you see her, and say that you really enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure you did. But thank you very much for watching and listening. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel or the Spotify side of things, then we do have like a little members area there where you're able to get these episodes a week earlier than everybody else if you do make that subscription, which we are really grateful for. It helps us run the podcast, and just put some money in the kitty for doing little events that we have planned through the year. But thanks very much for watching and listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers for that, Sarah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Enjoyed that. Really good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that.